What's up guys, Ryan here, Fly Fish Iowa. Today for our Midwest 101 series, we're talking about how to choose the right fly rod. So fly rods are given weight classification, and while these are generally related to their physical weight, they kind of are their own classification system. They're somewhat related to the stiffness of a rod as well as its physical weight. Common rod weights are between 0 and 12 weight, though there are some rods that go above and below those classifications too. The length of a fly rod ranges from about 6 feet in length to about 12 feet in length. The most common fly rod length is around 9 feet. Now, like most fishing rods, fly rods do have action. Now, the action of a fly rod can be considered fast, moderate, or slow. A fast action rod is a rod that is relatively stiff and then bends just at the tip section. Similar to how the shaft on a golf club fits the golfer best depending on his swing speed, so does a fly rod tend to fit an angler based on his casting stroke. New anglers tend to benefit from rods that are a more moderate or even slow action because it gives them the opportunity to feel that rod load better as they're beginning to get a handle on how to cast a fly rod. Fast action rods, on the other hand, are great for things like punching a hard cast through the wind and working in long casting situations. Fly rods are often broken into multiple pieces. There are one-piece fly rods as well, but generally you'll see fly rods in a 2 or 4-piece models. Fly rods can also be as many as 6 or 8 pieces, which makes transporting them super simple. Typically, the most common fly rod is a 4-piece fly rod, which breaks down to a relatively reasonable size. So how do you know exactly what fly rod to choose? Well, it comes down to a few specific things. Number 1, consider the purpose. What will be the purpose of your fly rod? You need to determine what types of fish you're planning to pursue with this rod and where. If you're planning to fly fish for trout on smaller spring creeks, a lighter rod is probably going to be a better choice. A 3 or a 4 weight rod ranging from 7 to maybe 8.5 feet in length could be a fantastic choice for you if you're fishing that small water. However, if you're planning on targeting a larger fish species like maybe bass or northern pike, you might be better off with something like a 6 to 8 weight rod, something that's a little heavier, a little stiffer, that's going to be able to deliver some larger flies to these fish.
A good all-around Iowa fly rod, in my opinion, is a 6-weight fly rod. With a 6-weight fly rod, you could, if you wanted, go up to Northeast Iowa and trout fish. It's a little heavy, but you could make it work. You can also target bass all over Iowa in ponds and lakes with a 6-weight rod, no problem. You can also go to your local rivers and target things like smallmouth, drum. You can even target carp on the fly with a 6-weight fly rod. Now, it is challenging to fight a large fish on a 6-weight fly rod. But if you had to choose just one for Iowa, I think a 6-weight is the way to go. If you're planning on primarily trout fishing, I would select something in the 3 to 4 weight range. If you are planning to primarily bass fish, I would select something in the 5 to 7 weight range. And if you're primarily targeting larger toothy critters like pike and muskie, I would select something in that 7 to 10 weight range depending on where you're targeting them.
If you're going to be traveling with your fly rod, you might consider something like a 4-piece rod. That way it's easier to either carry onto a plane or stow in your back seat when you're traveling on the road. The second thing you need to consider when purchasing a rod is the price of the rod. In retail, you truly do get what you pay for. If you choose to purchase a fly rod that's $800 or above, you will be getting a very high quality fly rod. Now, if you're a beginner angler, that does not mean you are going to be a better caster because you bought a better fly rod. You can purchase a rod at Walmart for $40 or $50 and catch fish on it. You can also purchase a rod for $1,000 and catch fish on it too. What I would recommend you do is to set your budget and then try to stay within that. A good target range to start out for buying your first fly rod would be in the $100 to $300 range. Not only does this ensure that you get a quality rod, it also gives you a little bit of incentive to be careful with your rod. Not to break it, not to take bad care of it and throw it around in the back of your truck. Make sure you treat your fly rod carefully. Put it away after each use, clean it as needed. The last thing you should consider with fly rod selection is preference. If you haven't cast a fly rod before, get some casting lessons first. Consider which fly rods fit your casting motion best. Try casting some rods with different actions: fast action, slow action, medium action. See what works. In general, fast action rods are typically not the best for beginners, but that doesn't mean you can't start on one if it fits your casting stroke best. If you're going to spend hundreds of dollars on a piece of equipment, make sure it's what you want. Ask your local sporting goods store or fly shop if you're able to test cast some rods before you purchase them. That way you know exactly what you're purchasing. Find out what you like. If you have a friend that has a rod similar to something you might be interested in, ask if you can cast their rod. Try different brands, try different lengths, see what works for you. The last thing I will mention is to trust the judgment of experts. If you have a local fly shop employee who has been fly fishing for a long time, they're a trustworthy individual, and you can tell that they're well respected in the angling community, listen to their advice. Ask others who have been fishing longer than you have and see what they prefer. Watch gear reviews, see what the general public thinks. So I hope this helps as you consider what fly rod you should purchase. Our local fly shop here in Iowa is Rod and Rivet, located in Des Moines and Decorah. Highly recommend you reach out to those guys if you're interested in purchasing your first fly rod. Tell them that Fly Fish Iowa sent you. Thanks for your time. Tight lines. Hope to see you on the water.